Let's talk Championship Sunday, best bets. I got 4 best bets placed so far this week. We're getting them out early before some of these lines move for you beautiful people. But these are the 4 bets I have placed. You fellas, hey, ladies and gentlemen, not now, but right now, let's discuss them. So we can pull up the handy dandy Action Network here to look at some odds comparisons. And I want to focus on the spread of these games. The spread of these games right now for the Bengals and Chiefs we can start with, right? The early game on Sunday. It opened at -7 for the Chiefs. And a lot of people, it's interesting. Early on, the money is coming in on the Chiefs at -7, which is moving this number, right, to now the Chiefs -7.5 at BetMGM. And I suspect early on some of the other lines will move that way. Now, I personally can't help but look at this and see a couple of things, right? A couple of things stand out right away, right? The Chiefs are 7-point favorites. The Chiefs are normally a public team. Patrick Mahomes, he's great. He has gone to 4 straight and hosted 4 straight AFC championship games. It's all fantastic for this guy. And then you look at the opposite side of the coin as to why people would be taking this Chiefs team, and they just saw Joe Burrow get sacked a record 9 times. And that offensive line, I apologize, it's not getting any healthier or any better. And the Chiefs, although they're not the Titans front, the Titans bring good pressure, they still can get to the quarterback. So if Ryan Tannehill doesn't throw 3 picks and the Titans don't turn the ball over 4 times, there's a chance the Titans cover 7 points last week and the Titans have nowhere near the offense that the Chiefs do. So I understand where the narrative is coming from now, right? The Chiefs are rolling. The Titans were off a couple of weeks of rest, getting all their guys back at once, kind of rusty with Julio and AJ and Derrick Henry finally back, right? So I see where the line is for the Chiefs -7. And I actually put up a tweet earlier in the week, right? I put up a tweet earlier in the week and you can see it right here. It's a joke. The 5 steps of the sports betting market 101, and you can read those out to yourselves on the podcast version. It's basically, the Chiefs struggle usually to cover against good teams, especially when it's 7 points or more. So well, look at that. You get the Bengals at +7. Everybody hammers the Bengals. Then even more people take the Bengals on the tees at +13. And just like that, the Chiefs win by 14, and the books absolutely win a bunch of money and recap their losses for the year. But I want to focus on the better number here, in my opinion. Right now, it is Bengals +7.5. We're getting a hook early on in the Bengals +7.5. And we might get a better number as the week goes on, but I'm going to personally take this right now at +7.5. And if for the most part, it could really come down to this. In this game, Patrick Mahomes has been fantastic. One of the best playoff performances these last 2 weeks ever, right? Second player ever to throw for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns when he did that against Big Ben. Big Ben was the only other person to do it, actually, believe it or not. And then last week, how both of those guys, and Josh Allen and Mahomes, how well they played on offense. So it's fantastic. But during the regular season, Joe Burrow was a better true passer rating quarterback. Number 5 to Patrick Mahomes, number 7. Both solid, right? He was a better overall quarterback this regular season. And he started the NFL season with his own record. The first quarterback ever to throw for 70% completion percentage or better in his first 2 starts. And it's not like he was just attempting dink and dunk passes like a Jimmy Garoppolo. These were downfield shots. So that's the first thing. You're giving me 7.5 points with this guy and Joe Burrow, and that's kind of like, they have their offense, they have their receivers, of course, they have a Joey Mixon. That's kind of all they have. Like, their secondary has been solid at limiting big plays to an extent, right? Their pass rush has been meh. Their defensive lines right now are banged up, so meh. It's basically their receivers, an okay secondary, an Eli Apple, an Uzie, some guys who are just holding it together for them to be league average. And that's why I see 7.5 points. I'm like, okay, I can trust this offense enough to put up points. And the Bengals, who rank 4th in scoreability, their ability to put up yards, but not only yards, put up points on those yards. And then I look at what's happening on the Chiefs side of the ball, and both these defenses are around, and neither of them are top 10 in the NFL this season. Now, they're trending in the right direction for the Bills towards the end of the year, or the Chiefs towards the end of the year, but you just saw them against the Bills. A good offense, but so are the Bengals. Give up some points and give up some big plays. These are league averages defenses in general. So Cincinnati will be able to score, and similar to last week, Tennessee's secondary play is not the greatest, and neither is the Chiefs. I mean, Ward got hurt last week, probably their best cornerback in their team, and now you're going to have Chase and Higgins yet again with solid matchups. So I'm taking the Bengals +7.5. I early on thought that was going to be the chalk pick of the week, but the money is coming in and moving the line in the Chiefs' direction. If you like the Bengals like I do, maybe you want to wait till later in the week and take your risk and roll your dice to get a +8. I'm going to take the +7.5 in hopes that it does not move back to +7 for all of you. Now let's talk a player prop from this game that I hammered it right away in order before the line moved, right? A player prop that I took right away in this game. It's going to be an exact one that I took last week, and it just missed hitting for us. But we're going right back to the well with Mr. Byron, the chip himself, Pringle. Byron Pringle's receiving yards is set at 35.5 on PrizePicks.com, which, by the way, if you use the code SAL, it's in the description, 2 seconds of your time, you get a free $100 bet for this weekend, and they're going to have promotions, like free bets everywhere. Use the code SAL, you get a free bet up to $100. You can take this prop and some other ones. You can tell your mother, your brother, your sister, your friend, your aunt, your uncle about it as well, so everybody gets in on the free bonuses, because now's the time to do it all these sports books giving away money. Use the code SAL, prizepicks.com. Byron Pringle, over 35.5 receiving yards. So last week, he just missed this for us, right? We've hit it a couple of times, 2 out of the last 3 weeks. He just missed this for us with 29 yards. 29 yards, and he dropped. It was a tough catch with that dive, but he dropped about a 10-yard catch on 3rd down late in the game. That would have put him over this number for us, but he had 7 targets. He's now seen 7 or more targets in 3 straight games. This is a player this season that averages 9.5 yards per target. And lately, since he's become the starter these last 8 to 9 weeks, he's averaging 5.5 targets per game, which puts him right around 52 receiving yards per game based on his yards per target. So on average, he is going to crush this number like he has multiple times over the past month of the season. He just missed it last week. That is unlikely to continue to happen as long as he keeps running 40-plus routes like he did last week. He keeps running as the wide receiver 2 on this team, ahead of Robinson, ahead of Harmon, only behind Tyreek in terms of the wide receivers in routes run, running 43 last week, led to 7 targets, 5 catches. He averages 13.5 yards per reception. All this dude needs is 3 receptions, and on average, he smashes this 35.5 number. We take the over on prizepicks.com. There's your reasoning for it. Go ahead and snag it with the code SAL. Get a free bet up to $100. Now let's transition to the second game of the weekend, the 3rd time we're seeing this matchup. We just saw it in Week 18. We saw it in Week 10 as well, on I believe a Thursday night football game when San Fran dominated that game. San Fran has now beat the Rams 6 straight times. McVay cannot get away from Kyle Shanahan. And now they're playing each other for a 3rd time this year in the NFC Championship, and the Rams open as home favorites, 3.5-point favorites. Now we can see money has quickly come in, at least on some books, money has come in on the 49ers. The 49ers on PointsBet have already been bet down to +3. Earlier in the day, they were at +3.5. So money is coming in on the 49ers as the underdog, and I guess it makes sense. They just knocked off the 1 seed in the Green Bay Packers. They have beat this team, like I said, 6 times. We just saw them beat this team in Week 18, so Odell was on the team. Cam Akers was limited, but most of these guys on both teams were there and healthy, and we just saw them win. Now, it took a late game comeback, a couple of big Jimmy G throws down the stretch, a Matthew Stafford that did not look as good as he has looked in the postseason these last 2 games. Pick sixes, interceptions, all that type of stuff, right? But they still ended up beating him. So I see why the money is coming in early on. And I'm just going to keep waiting here. I like the Rams -3 on PointsBet, and if it moves on other sites. And I think it probably settles in around that -3. So I'm going to take the Rams at -3 here. And that might sound crazy since they haven't beat this team in 3 years, which is insane to think about. But let's discuss some reasons. I mean, first of all, they had Jared Goff and a totally different team and scheme and all of that for the first 2 years, right? So really, we can only look at this specific year. And then the first matchup, the Rams are down a bunch of guys. COVID is ravaging their team. They don't have Cam Akers. So in terms of like full strength, these exact teams, when you hear all week long, oh, they've beat them their last 6 times. Jared Goff doesn't count, right? This is a different team. It's been one matchup in Week 18, a very close game where it came down to the stretch, where it took turnovers, where the Rams did not have Cam Akers, who fumbled the ball twice last week. So that might not mean a lot to you, but it means a lot to them. He's more versatile. He's more dynamic than a Sony Michel. It's been 3 more weeks of Odell Beckham and Matthew Stafford getting to clink together, and Odell having 8 targets last week and 6 big catches in the divisional round against the Bucs. So when the narratives are spun to you this week, don't buy into the narratives of the last. Look at just Week 18. Use Week 8. That's all you need. Week 10, bunch of guys injured, COVID ravaging the Rams. Just look at Week 18 as the week to match up these guys. A very close game. That was a coin flip at the end of the day. Took a last-second victory from Juwan Jennings for the Rams, or the 49ers, to win that game. And now on the opposite side, as the previous matchups this season, if anybody's banged up, it's the 49ers banged up. In that last game, Trent Williams, probably their best overall player, got hurt. Deebo Samuel, probably their second best overall player, got hurt, banged up, injured. Jimmy Garoppolo, their quarterback, he is playing pretty damn banged up. You can see that in the last game. Now, he's not playing good in general. A lot of interceptable passes in that last game, including one that got intercepted. But man, oh man, he's playing hurt. And it's just a bad matchup for the 49ers. Now, I know their pass rush is getting there, but Matthew Stafford, you can see my tweet here, is the #1 quarterback in the NFL under pressure this year. Over 70% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns to 1 interception, 135 quarterback rating. The #1 pressured completion percentage quarterback in the NFL this season went under duress. So even though they're getting some pressure, I'm not too concerned about that. Their defense scheme-wise against the Packers, it was a cold weather game. There's snow going on. There's nobody else except Devontae Adams to take away. It's a totally different scheme now to have to account for not just Cooper Kupp, who could be your Devontae Adams for that team. Oh, yeah, but then after that, you actually have a tight end who can be used and has had success in this matchup this year, Tyler Higbee. Oh, yeah, you actually have Odell Beckham Jr., who is by far better than anything else the Packers had as a secondary option. Oh, yeah, Van Jefferson to stretch the field, which the Packers didn't have as MVS was injured. It's totally different. You can't look at it the same way as, oh, but they shut down the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. It's so many more things to account for. So the way that I see this is a 25-point team implied total for the Rams. The 49ers are going to have to put up points to even stay close in this one, right? It's not going to be the same thing as last week, and a lot of people will think that it is. This is not the Cowboys, right? This is not the Cowboys team. Matthew Stafford is going to take his one-on-one shots to Odell and Van Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. Unlike, for whatever reason, Kellen Moore and Dak Prescott didn't do to CeeDee Lamb and Amari. They had 15 one-on-one matchups. They only took one shot. I'm still wondering why. They're going to do that. The Rams, McVay, he's going to do that. He's going to take those shots. He's going to succeed against the secondary. And for the 49ers to only have one offensive touchdown in the last 7 quarters of football, I mean, that's in 2 in the postseason and 8 quarters. I mean, that's a concern when you're going up against the number 1 defense in the NFL, right? Aaron Donald, Von Miller coming on. Obviously, Ramsey, the safety play, getting healthier during the postseason for the Rams is dangerous. So I like what I'm getting here at the Rams -3. And if people keep on betting the 49ers side of this, fine. It feels completely fine to do that. This is not plus 7.5 like you're getting on the Cinderella story in the AFC in the Bengals, right? The Cinderella story right here is giving you plus 3.5 because they beat this team twice this year, and really they beat them once at full strength in Week 18. And it was kind of when the Rams already knew that they were in, and it was a last-second thing. I'm taking the Rams -3 at home here. And now a player prop that I like from this game is one that, even though I just said all of that stuff I just said, you might scratch your head and say, hey, Sal, what are you talking about? Why are you taking the under on Matthew Stafford's passing yards at 277.5? Why are you taking the under there? Well, I'm taking the under and whatever you want to get him. Price Picks, I think, has him at 270.5 right now. DraftKings 277.5, so get him there. Put him into your Price Picks allocations as well if you would like to. Again, that code Sal gets a free bet up to $100. The reason I'm taking the under here is, well, you can see on the season he's averaging 287 passing yards per game. But since the midway point of the season, when they started to decide to run the ball more with Sony Michel, and now with Cam Akers, who's coming off of 25-plus touches last week, fumbled twice, yes, so maybe that impacts his touches, but even if it does, Sony Michel gets a couple more touches. Since they started to run the ball mid-season, that 287 passing yard per game number is down into the 260s. So there you go, average-wise. Against this 49ers team, they held him to 243 yards in Week 10 on 41 attempts. And then in Week 18, they held him to 238 yards on 32 attempts as they decided to run the ball more and more. You can see my tweet is on the screen. So this is an interesting spot for Stafford. Yes, of course. In last week, he balled out in the first half, had so many yards. But in the second half, they shut it down. Their entire offense did. We almost got there on under 277.5 passing yards last week on Stafford. Like, the last drive of the game, they picked up 64 yards on 2 plays to Cooper Kupp. If the Tampa Bay Buccaneers don't get 3 fumbles in the third and fourth quarter and come all the way back, and I know if, right, they ended up happening. But if that doesn't happen, Matthew Stafford ends last week with 300 yards, not having to throw those last 2 passes on that final drive. And yes, that's still over the number, but nowhere near as much as people are going to look this week when they see he threw for 366 yards last week. And by the way, this team, I don't think they're going to have 15 offensive possessions like they did last week. 15 offensive possessions the Rams had last week, which of course you get more passing attempts, more plays at that point. I think they're going to have a lot less. I think they're going to have 5 to 7 less. The 49ers, the way that they're going to play is run. Right? They're going to run the clock. They're going to run the ball 20 times with Elijah Mitchell, 10 times with Deebo Samuel, and it's going to be very slow paced. So I'm expecting a lot less possessions, drive, pass attempts in general, somewhere around 30 pass attempts for Stafford, and even if he is efficient, even if he averages 8 yards per attempt, and he has 240 yards, right? So I'm going to be taking the under 270.5 passing yards. That is a player prop that I like the most from each game right now. That is right now the favorite bets. Over-unders right now, I don't have any stance on. We can talk about those later in the week and on live streams, but that's where I'm at. A bet from each game, a player prop from each game. For the props, you could use the code SAL on prizepicks.com. Linked in the description. You get a free instant bet up to $100 match, so check it out. Link down below when you deposit on prizepicks.com. And it's legal in California. It's legal in New York and Texas and places you might not think that it is, so check it out. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you being here. I'll see you in the next one. Content all week for Championship Sunday. I'll see you when I see you, gang, and I'll see you all in the next one.